I'm a massive fan of rhythm games, but I just don't play enough of them. I'm also a massive fan of shoot 'em ups, and I also don't play enough of them. So when I found City of Beats on the Steam store that combined the two genres into one groovy time, I was like,
shut up and take my money!
City of Beats is a simple looking shooter game, but with a very interesting premise. Your gun is timed to the beat of the music. It's not a new idea. Other games have used this concept in the past, like bullets per minute or Metal Rhythm FPS, but this time it's electronic music. Set in a futuristic metropolis armed initially with a laser gun, you have to shoot your way through robotic blobs and mini-bosses and take out the evil AI at the end of the road. Your gun only fires to the beat of the music, so any clicks or trigger presses done off-beat will just be wasted contributions to carpal tunnel syndrome. Ow, my wrist. The game holds your hand a fair amount though, so you can just hold the button down and it'll fire to the beat automatically. You can, however, fire the gun's secondary action in a powerful blast to deal more damage, and again, this has to be done on beat. What I love though is not only does firing your weapon need to be done on beat, but it actually adds to the beat, so it's like its own instrument, adding more to the womp, 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 womp. Your gun can overheat though if you use the secondary fire too much, so you have to wait a bit for it to cool down. But this mechanic brought out a really interesting strategy, where I had to make up some funky beat for my secondary fire that means I can fire it as much as possible without overheating, but also on beat. So instead of being like pow, 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 I'll be like yeah? Makes sense. The challenge of this game though has very little to do with firing your weapon, because all you need to do is hold down your primary fire and it just fires to the music automatically. And then for your secondary attack, you just use it every bar, or fourth beat, or I guess it depends on the song's time signature. I have no idea what I'm talking about, I don't really play any instruments. But if you just hold the right click to fire your secondary gun, then it charges up and it fires on the beat. So technically it fires automatically, but whilst you're using your secondary fire, you can't use your primary fire. So that means that's just wasted seconds you could have spent firing your primary gun, which means it's important to fire your secondary weapon onto the beat. I'm hoping I'm making some sort of sense here. Weirdly, it's harder to explain, but it's actually quite straightforward to pull off. I think because it's so easy and requires such little thought to shoot in City of Beats, I found it pretty relaxing, which is a weird way to describe a shooter game, but oddly, not a weird way to describe a rhythm game. I remember many times playing Guitar Hero as a kid, when I got good enough to start playing on hard or expert level without really thinking much. I would zone out and completely engulf myself in the music, and play without actually really thinking much, which is kinda how City of Beats goes. Until this thing comes in and ruins your good vibes. Most of the enemies are pretty chill in this game. They just spaff plasma balls at you and put up occasional shields, which are also on beat, but the mini bosses that appear at the end of each zone take the difficulty way up, with each one more bonkers than the last, which I guess is usually how games work. So my time of zen-like relaxation in the cyberpunk spa is replaced with manic dodging and button mashing, all whilst trying to shoot on beat and predict the enemy's movement and not waste my super ability when the boss puts up their shield. What probably helps though is the fact that everything the enemies do is also in time with the music. So they move and fire and put up shields all to the beat, adding their own instrumental flair to the soundtrack, which is pretty neat. The game is similar to other roguelikes, where you traverse different paths through 3 main zones, collecting upgrades for your run and currency to spend on permanent upgrades back at camp. And it works well, except when you stumble upon this upgrade.
I don't believe you.
I think this upgrade literally does nothing. Why? Why would they do this? I mean, they told me it does nothing. I kind of guess I only have myself to blame for buying it. But why do I feel so betrayed? Like any game though, I just spam upgraded the ability that gave me the most damage and critical chance and became the ultimate glass cannon. There is a limit to how many points you can spend on upgrades though, which increases as you defeat each mini-boss, which prevents you from steamrolling the game early on, which is fair. I could take it or leave it. I don't mind being OP in a game if the gameplay is fun, but from a balancing perspective, it's probably the smart thing to do. On paper, the permanent trait upgrades sound okay. A plus 10 to health here, a plus 3% weapon damage there, but overall I found they didn't really impact the game as much as my own ability did. I found the main reason I was able to start getting deeper into the zones and beat the bosses was because of my improved ability to not get hit, as well as learning the enemy attack patterns and when I should dodge and the best way to take down each enemy. So basically everything that was to do with my skill level and not really anything to do with the traits I was upgrading. Maybe the game needs to buff up some of the upgrades if it's going to be in the game, because at the moment they're pretty weak. I mean, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's kind of cool that, you know, you get further into the game as you get better at it. That's kind of how games generally work. But when a main aspect of the game is kind of not as necessary as it could be, I feel like it needs to be implemented into the game a little bit more to become a bit more impactful. The game gives you a choice of 4 weapons with their own varying abilities, whether it's a straightforward semi-automatic pistol or a lightning bow that fires less often but chains damage. The cool thing is they all have their own time signature, so they fire on different beats and change up the song. I found myself mostly using the first weapon though, as I love a high fire rate, lower damage weapon because I'm a no good bronze who needs a weapon that allows me to miss half my shots and not punish me for it. Especially in a game like this where things can very quickly become hectic in the later levels. Not only are enemies hurting you, but the floor is hurting you as it lights up to the beat, so you gotta keep an eye out for that as well. Or I guess, keep an ear out for it. Then there are some enemies that will have their shields on permanently in a cone in front of them, and the only way you can kill them is by running behind them like... And you gotta do all of this whilst grooving to the beat. But after you've made your way through hordes of minimalistic low poly robots and die at the hands of Mr. Block number 3718, you return to the beacon, your safe space and home camp, which features such characters as Subwoofer the talking Robo-Dog and Barry the Barrel. Here at camp is where you make all your upgrades using the various forms of currency you've earned murdering barrels. There's traits you can upgrade, like damage or cooldown reductions, and then there's extensions which use a different currency that provides different upgrades? You know, like the less straightforward upgrades, so not just like 10% to your shoe size, but like start each zone with a free neat item. That sort of stuff. Oh, and you can only equip 3 extensions at a time, so choose wisely. As well as getting an upgrade at the end of each fight, you can buy upgrades, upgrade upgrades, and trade upgrades from shops that you stumble across during the zone travel screen. There's also sections that offer greater rewards but a tougher fight, and depending on which path you take, you'll be offered different types of upgrades or even just extra currency. There's a load of other types of platforms too, so there's a tactical side to how you travel between zones as well. And whilst this game is pretty basic on the surface with its gameplay and graphics, it does execute it pretty well. City of Beats can be both chill and a hectic mess, and that's the kind of variety I'd like. And whilst the game holds your hand a fair amount when it comes to shooting, you can't take it too easy since your focus will often be drawn to how you move around the map on beat to the music, and dodging bullets and traps and poison clouds alike. I think it would have been nice for your basic fire to have to be more timed to the music rather than you just holding it down, but at least you have to think about your secondary fire to make sure you're both shooting on beat and not too often so that you overheat your gun. Overall though, a pretty neat game. Thanks for watching everyone. If you're looking for another indie game, then check out my video on the Pale Beyond.